morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Guys, we got a loaded show today, but first, tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. But the reason I say it's a loaded show, it's 100 days, guys, until the Longhorns kick off. Bobby, give them the background on the 100 here.
You see that? I thought we should show this picture. Here's a little trivia question for you. Does anybody know what season this is from? It's pretty self-explanatory there if you're a Longhorn historian. But that 100 on the helmet was the 100th year, I believe, of the University of Texas. And then now we are 100 days away from football season. Jerry, you can almost taste it. You got a chance to go up to Duncanville yesterday. We're going to try to go to their spring game while you were in the Metroplex, but it ended up getting canceled after all, huh? Dakorien Moore was too fast? It struck some lightning or something?
Look, even Dakorien Moore couldn't outrun the tornado warnings yesterday. But look, that picture, you know what my overwhelming thought on that picture was? Yeah, we're 100 days from the season. And if Arch Manning's looking at that saying, man, Archie, did you really play in that helmet back in the day? I mean, like, that's the question for Grandpa. And by the way, I'm glad I don't have to wear that 16 jersey one day. So things have changed quite a bit there on the uniform front in college football. But yeah, I was on the road in DFW yesterday and had a chance to have a nice discussion with Dakorien Moore yesterday at Duncanville High. And there's the picture of Dakorien and his mom from yesterday. We're gonna have a long interview on the YouTube channel here later today with Dakorien. I also already put up some notes from that visit on ontexasfootball.com. But I think you guys will really enjoy getting to know Dakorien a little bit. He's very confident, as he should be. But I'll tell you what always impresses me about Dakorien is he's thoughtful, he's intelligent, and he's a guy that he's kind of a football junkie studier. And so I think all that's going to come through. His mama's done a good job raising him now. So Dakorien, very impressive yesterday. And I think Texas fans and, hey, any Ohio State fans or Oregon fans on here as well that watch that interview, they'll be like, yeah, that's the type of guy we want at our university. So aside from being a super freak on a football field and on the track, Dakorien Moore really handles himself well. He's that guy's going to crush NIL wherever he goes because he's going to be one of those guys people want to put in front of a camera.
Jerry, I saw Michael Fasusi's interview yesterday as well. Same could be said for him. And I know you were up there interviewing others that we've yet to release as well. But what'd you think of Fasusi and your meeting with him?
Yeah, so I think Fasusi is extremely confident, which I like. The one thing that I took from his workout, his training session with Donald Hawkins, and we've had Donald Hawkins, former Texas NFL offensive lineman, on the show before. We'll get him on before the season again. But look, Donald Hawkins is he's to the point. He's not gonna be soft. You can't be soft on these guys. And I thought Fasusi took coaching and instruction really well and tried to immediately take it to the next rep. And that doesn't mean he got it perfect every time. He's a young offensive lineman. He's a young football player. This will be his fourth year playing. And training with Donald Hawkins this is a newer experience. You have to get used to that. But I thought what Fasusi did, he showed, obviously he has the frame, he has the feet, he has the length, he has all that stuff. There's a reason he's ranked where he is a prospect. But I thought the impressive thing with him on Tuesday was he's willing to be coached. He doesn't think he has the answers. And a lot of these highly recruited kids that have been nationally recruited a long time, highly ranked, they're kind of harder to reach in that setting. But the guys that take the coaching, take it to the next rep or the second rep. If you struggle the first rep, you get it right the second rep, and understand the process of what you're trying to do. Those guys end up making it. And I think Fasusi understands that. And I think he's a very motivated kid. Obviously moved to the States when he was 12. He's got a lot of motivation with him. So it's going to be a fight with Texas A&M, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. He'll visit Missouri. I think he's going to stay close to home. I'll be surprised if it's not one of the two in-state schools. Not going to totally rule out Oklahoma, but I think that's where it's headed.
Some other recruiting news that I guess you could say came out yesterday is Texas quarterback commit KJ Lacey was named an Elite 11 finalist. Jerry, I'm going to let you tell folks a little more on Lacey and where things stand.
Yeah, KJ Lacey, one of the Elite 11 finalists there. I think that is the 20 right after the last official visit weekend, right? So right at the 27th through 29th in that area code out in California. Keelan Russell will be there as well. KJ Lacey will be there amongst those. Julian Lewis there you see. But KJ Lacey, look, the one thing I say about KJ Lacey is when people look at his profile, they see 165, 167 pounds. I was in Saraland just 2.5 weeks ago. He's up to 186 pounds now. He started to fill out. He's grown about 1/2 inch since he committed to Texas. So you look at a guy who's 6 foot, 186 pounds now. Some people list him at 5'11", 165. That's just not accurate. He's gained almost 20 pounds. He was about 172 pounds at the beginning of his junior season. Now tipping the scales at 186. So he's starting to fill out. He's younger for his class. He could actually be a sophomore right now going into his junior year. So he's starting to fill out that process of filling out that frame. I think what I think is going to be interesting about KJ as a senior is everybody says, well, they lost Ryan Williams. Yeah, they lost Ryan Williams. They have good players at Saraland, but they lost all 5 starting offensive linemen. So KJ is going to have a chance to be more of a playmaker. Because I think the schedule they play, it's going to give him an opportunity to be more of a playmaker off schedule this year than the last couple of years when they had that experienced offensive line. So he's going to get to show a little bit more of his game, his all-around game this year than I think he's gotten to the last 2 years because they had such a good and experienced offensive line. Coach Kelly does a great job, former Southern Miss and NFL and Canadian League quarterback there as the head coach. But KJ is going to get more playmaking opportunities outside the pocket this year. And some of that's going to be forced because they're going to be younger on the offensive line.
Hey, we need to say congrats, by the way, to a man that has done a lot for the University of Texas these last several years since he took over. Chris Del Conte yesterday by Sports Business Journal was named the Athletic Director of the Year. Well-deserved honor. Congratulations to Chris and his family and to all of those in the University of Texas Athletic Department that helped make this possible for not only Chris. It's really a school award. And Chris would be the first person to tell you that other guys deserve a lot, and women deserve a pat on the back as well. But Texas going from the Big 12 to the SEC in a big way with 15 conference championships. Chris Del Conte named the National Athletic Director of the Year. Ceremony up in New York City last night, I believe it was. I got sent some pictures from that. But congratulations to Chris. And what he's done and how he's represented the University of Texas. Definitely one of the more forward-facing ADs we have had at Texas, and he deserves every bit of credit that he receives, in my opinion. So,
by the way, I saw somebody checking in early from Perdido Key, and I totally agree on Chris Del Conte. For those that haven't been to Perdido Key, now that Texas has moved to the SEC, you got to go on a Saturday and go to Floribama and watch SEC football. I was there last September, 2 weeks after Texas beat the brakes off of Alabama and Tuscaloosa. And I say beat the brakes because it's anytime it's a double-digit win, it's like a slaughter, okay? And when Nick Saban's a coach. But that was about as much fun as you can have watching college football. If you haven't taken it in, go to Floribama. There's like live music going on 2 or 3 different stages. SEC fans with their gear from 6, 7, 8 different schools all there on a Saturday. A lot of fun. And I saw somebody checking in from Turks and Caicos, and I'm jealous.
That, you know, it's starting to get hot too. I saw somebody up in the Tetons as well. That wouldn't be too bad either. You know what I mean? Last day of school, been coaching a ton of baseball. Birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Christian, to you and your family. Hope you had a good one, buddy. Hey, I wanted to say also thank you to our sponsor. That sponsor is Rick Vavro of Austin Underground. Since 2004, Austin Underground is specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground.
Okay, guys. Well, here momentarily, I guess I should say, we'll have Texas softball head coach Mike White joining us. But before we get to that, Bobby, yesterday we talked about what's going on with the NCAA and everything. I know a lot more unfolded yesterday. You're very well versed when it comes to that stuff, so I'm going to let you give folks out there the rundown.
Well, the Big Ten has now also agreed to the settlement. So that makes the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big Ten. They're waiting for the SEC, which votes today, is my understanding. But the big news out of yesterday was that the NCAA itself, the Board of Governors, voted to agree to the settlement in the House versus the NCAA case, which would delegate or disperse $2.8 billion to current and former athletes in the form of NIL compensation. It is a landmark case. A lot of people are talking about just 2 years ago. Just to give you a sense here, just 2 years ago, the NCAA was fighting the others for $6,000 per player as illegal compensation to players. Now they're going to have to give up $2.8 billion. That's what happens when the courts get involved and things are seen as improper. $2.8 billion. So they're going to go from $6,000 a year to literally having to pay back $30 million a year. Some of these campuses. So I look. The reality of it is, it has changed. College football is not this noble notion of student athletes only get scholarships anymore. It's turned into a big business, and the employees, for lack of a better term, whether they're employees or not, is up for debate according to the courts. They deserve some of the money as well. What's interesting to me is going to be the fallout from this, Blake and Jerry and everybody else, because the courts aren't done. This doesn't settle everything. This just settles past deeds. There are a couple of riders in the agreement that account for future issues, but Title IX is totally withheld discussion here. That's one big one. Another one, in my opinion, is whether or not the players are going to be eventually titled as employees as opposed to just NIL contract labor. That's another position. There's just so many different little nuances that are still yet to be decided. I think this is a step. Hopefully it's a step into creating some normalcy in college football. But I actually think we're still a long ways away from there being normalcy. I really do believe that.
Guys, we got a super chat that we need to read here. Jerry, this one is for you from Jack. He said, and Jack, no stranger to super chats, so we always appreciate it. He says, "Hey, Jerry, I'm an old geezer. Does Manscaped have a model for me? I need to look sharp when I check out the hotties at the retirement communities around the Austin area."
Well, yeah, man. Look, they got the 5.0, the 4.0, the 3.0, and the 8.0 is coming soon. But the handyman is pretty good too when you're driving around. I was just on the road. I take the handyman wherever, get a little shave in the car going 85. Man, Manscaped has you covered. You can do it all.
Why are you going 85, my man? You know that's illegal.
Speed limit 75 in Texas, man. I mean, look, on I-45, it's 75. So if you aren't going 85, you're getting pushed off the road. I mean, the deers run 87 miles an hour down I-45. Okay, so you got to go. You got to pick it up and go. How are you going to get up? How are you going to get up and get an interview with Dakorien Moore if you're not driving 85? He walks 88 miles an hour.
Oh, man, Jerry's locked and loaded this morning. Okay, guys.
Hey, Jerry, Blake, before you go on, people had made some comments in the chat. When we started off, we talked about 100 days to Texas football. We literally are now. Starting tomorrow, we're in double digits until football begins this year. We put that photo up, and it was from the 1969 season. But that game from that photo was actually in 1970, January 1st, 1970. Texas played Notre Dame, and James Street, I believe, on the very next play threw to Randy Peschel for a first down there, or Cotton Spire. I can't remember. But anyways, one of those two, Longhorns eventually winning the national championship and defeating Notre Dame in that contest.
There you go. Hey, Kelly Hill says, how about the Longhorns using that retro look for the helmets for a game or two?
I could see it.
I could see it too. And they did it. They did some retro looks back when Vince Young was there that I thought looked really cool. Of course, Vince Young looked cool whenever he played football, but so maybe it was Vince Young that made them look good. You know what I mean? But I thought they were cool. If anything, while Chris Del Conte says, no, we're not messing with the uniforms, retros are okay to mess with because you've done it before. Tweaking the style, et cetera, and fancying them up, and that's not necessarily what it's about. But retro might be on the table, I bet.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna wait here for Coach White to join us. But while we do, let's talk about this for a second. Yard Barker put out some way too early 2024 12 playoff predictions. They have the Longhorns as a 5 seed, which means they would face Tulane, who is their projected 12. Just real quick, get y'all's thoughts on this, as I know Coach White is about to join us.
Yeah, Oklahoma State at number 4 is a joke.
Agreed.
I mean, no offense to Yard. I don't even know who Yard Barker is, but Oklahoma State's not going to be number 4, guys. Got news for you.
A Texas Tulane matchup would be fun unless your name's Lincoln Riley.
Why is that?
Because he lost to Tulane at USC in a bowl game 2 years ago.
Okay, I got you.
Gave up 50 points.
That was a tough get. The one that I thought was interesting out of all of these actually was Clemson. Look, we talk about Dabo Swinney and his aversion to taking players out of the portal. You know what? If he ends up with the number 3 seed in college football, he's going to be more sanctimonious than he is today. You know, it'll be more of that. So
no. He's he'll pull his pants down and moon college football if he gets in as a 3 seed.
Yeah,
because he's taking a lot for not taking anybody out of the portal. So if he does it his way, college football will never live it down.
Hey, Blake,
if he gets it done his way, great for him. It's just
Blake. Let's bring Coach White in. We'll come back to this in a second. Yep. Coach White's here waiting for us now. Welcome in, Texas softball coach, number 1 national overall seed and Kiwi, Mike White. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for the invite to come on the show.
Well, we appreciate you. Congratulations on a terrific season thus far. You've had a whale of a year. You guys host Texas A&M this upcoming weekend in the Super Regionals. Tell us a little bit about your team and how things have gone this year.
Well, yeah, obviously we're the overall number 1 ranked team, and we've had a really successful season to date, winning the Big 12 championship league season. Did tremendously well there. We had pretty deep pitching staff, good offense, I think number 1 scoring offense in the country, and good defense behind it. So we're excited to host the Aggies this weekend.
Hey, Coach, one of the things we had you on before the season, and we all thought, all right, Coach he's got a potentially great team. But I was looking at your roster, looking at your lineup against Northwestern. Your first 5 hitters, nobody's a senior. 4 of your 5 pitchers, only 1 senior in that group. Has this group exceeded your expectations? Not that they're not experienced, but it's not a senior-laden team. So have they gone beyond even your expectations before the season?
Well, obviously, you're always hoping to be in the top 8, that's for sure, but being ranked number 1 at this time of year, that's exceeded my expectations for sure. But we were fortunate enough to have a really good freshman class last year that are now sophomores, obviously, with a lot of experience in the postseason and also playing against OU during the season down there at Oklahoma City. Was 8,000 people at that game, so it was tremendous for us to be able to get in that environment. And then, of course, bringing in a really good freshman class as well that's just fit right in. So, yeah, we're kind of blessed right now to be very young.
Coach, I got to ask you, we'll talk about Reese Atwood and her accolades and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about this weekend. It's my understanding that y'all are sold out right now already for the Super Bowl. Is that accurate?
Oh, I think it's sold out in the first 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. But it's a smallish stadium, 1,600 people. But there's room in the outfield. If you want to come hang out on the fence and make some noise out there, there's always room for people out there.
We love it. Well, you love the loud atmosphere whenever you can get it any way you can. Coach, tell us a little bit about Reese Atwood. She's up for National Player of the Year this year. Young lady has just killed it on the diamond for you this year.
Yeah, obviously Reese has been a huge part of our success, and started out really on fire. It was like every other game was a home run, and like crazy. But she cooled off a little bit in the middle, but then caught fire again, and she's been somewhat consistent, always in that number 4 position in the lineup for us, and a great catcher as well. Got a cannon for an arm, so she's always one of the ones that's working extra, at the field in the batting cages, and is a real student of it. Gets frustrated when she doesn't get a hit sometimes, but I just love her passion and fire.
Hey, one of our fans here, Coach David Rawls, has a question. Did you see the Reese Atwood coming on this year like this? Because she, clearly becoming one of the top 2 or 3 players in all of college softball. That wasn't necessarily expected going into the year. Right? What did you see this coming on, or did she just kind of just will it to happen?
Well, when we recruited her, she was more of a defensive catcher, a strong arm, and we felt like she was kind of like an Aubrey Monroe kind of catcher from Florida. She was an All-American at Florida, and we thought there'd be potential for her to get a lot better hitter because of her levers. She's very tall and lanky. But she has exceeded our expectations as far as coming back this year. What a tremendous surprise it's been.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to follow up with this. So you have the ability to recruit some of the best players in the country, right? Some of the highest ranked prospects. I believe Reese was ranked 3 or 4 by most of the services that rank softball prospects. What is it, the extra that you're looking for? Because when you have the ability to recruit all the highly ranked players, that doesn't mean you will. What is it you look for in a prospect that to fit at the University of Texas and fit with you?
Yeah, I think I heard this from another coach, maybe in football, but we're looking for PhDs, passionate, hungry, and driven. Because if you're going to be out there, that's a jump coming from travel ball. It's like you're practicing every day. It's 6 days a week, 1 day off, and you've got to be driven and hungry to be able to do that and just keep that fire up. And so it's kind of like it's tough for the freshmen. They're just not quite used to it, and sometimes they get beaten up by the end of the year. But that's what we're looking for, is that mental component that's going to separate you from the rest.
Go ahead, Jerry. No, go ahead, Jerry. Go ahead.
You've had what? This is your maybe 4th or 5th team that's won 50 games. This, I think, 14 years super regional in a row for you, which is, I don't know if you'd ever make the super regional. You're going to be so bored you could come on here every day if you want. But so what does this team have that some of those other teams had that had great seasons, that went on and had great postseasons as well?
Yeah, it's tough to say because you separate each team. They're always a little bit different. You always bring in 4 or 5 in and 4 or 5 leave. But I think just this team's been a lot closer together. I think the camaraderie is there. Obviously it was a transition when we had the long ducks, so to speak. When they're coming in, that was a different, trying to blend 2 cultures. That was always difficult. And now we're out of that, and now we're into a true, Mike White kind of like program or team where everyone's someone we recruited. So I think we're getting the pieces together, and it took a little longer than I thought it was going to, but I really like the blend of the players that we have. And I try to get a combination of speed, power, obviously defense and pitching. And now we're getting, 3, 4, 5 deep in pitching, which is great.
Coach, let's talk about pitching for a second. And let's start with Mac Morgan. Obviously, she threw a no-hitter for you guys this past weekend. How big has her play been for y'all?
Oh, it's been so much better this year. We talked at the end of last year about, as a drop ball pitcher, trying to keep the ball low in the zone, to be like a sinker baller in baseball. You kind of judge yourself by how many ground outs to fly outs. And she was getting way too many fly outs, which was meaning she was getting the ball up in the zone. And this year it's flipped around. It's almost 80% ground balls. So it showed that she's made a huge change to her philosophy on what she's doing with her pitching, and her location's got a lot better.
And then you got some other talented players on the mound as well. Tegan Cavan, for example. Can you talk about her, how she's done? Obviously, Big 12 Freshman of the Year, and some of the other pitchers that you're expecting big things from this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Tegan's someone that I know from the Midwest, from Iowa. Was coached by a friend of mine that was on the U.S. national team with me, Bill Hillhouse. And so I just like the philosophies they bring, and the movement and the spins and the velocity. So she's 6 foot tall and's got throws up close to 70 mile an hour, and it's been a great addition. The ceiling's the limit for her. There's no limit to the ceiling of what she can do as a pitcher. So I'm excited to have her for another few years, and that's the good thing, right? You get them for 4 years, which is awesome. But she can also throw a really deadly changeup in there as well.
Coach, we know you're busy. We appreciate you coming on. Blake, if you don't mind throwing up that game thing, when the games are this weekend, so everybody can see it for Coach. Tomorrow at 5:00, McCombs Field. Of course, it will be on ESPN2. But if you're in Austin, Coach wants you hanging on the fences. If possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's followed by Saturday, May 25th. At 4:00, and then Sunday is if needed. And by the way, they're playing the Aggies. Coach, have you played A&M before? Do you know what that rivalry is all about?
Oh yeah, we played them last year in the regional and knocked them out then. And it's going to be wild. I mean, they're going to come and they're going to bring it, and we're ready. So let's go, man. Let's pack the place and be loud like we were against Oklahoma.
Hey, Coach, my last question for you before you go. We've had a number of people ask this because Chris Del Conte was just named Athletic Director of the Year. And people are wondering, what was it when you talked to Chris Del Conte, the vision he had for Texas? What impressed you about Chris Del Conte, obviously, when y'all had that first meeting before you made the move to Texas?
Well, I talk about passionate, hungry, and driven, and it comes from the top, and he's the leader of that for sure. Just his he's easy to talk to. You don't feel like you're talking to superior, and he comes down to your level, and he's just such a people person. Just tremendous passion for sports, and he just doesn't want to see one team succeed here. He wants to see all teams succeed.
Good stuff, Coach. Go kick some butt this weekend, bud.
Yeah, let's do it. Welcome.
Take care. Good luck to the ladies tomorrow. Starting off tomorrow afternoon. Appreciate Coach White making the time. Busy schedule for him, obviously, but taking Texas softball to unprecedented heights at this point in time. All right. We've got about 100 days left, or not about, exactly 100 days left until football season. We're going to start talking a little bit of football here. Blake and myself and Jerry, et cetera, have been thinking about this and what we want to talk about today. Blake actually brought up a prediction from Yardbarker earlier, guys.
Yeah, we got to bring that back.
Ideas about who y'all think. I mentioned Clemson and Oklahoma State. The Oklahoma State thing just boggles my mind a little bit. Clemson, crazy. Anything else catch y'all's eye here?
You know what would be wild with this prediction? Dabo refuses to take anybody out of the portal, and Miami's putting everything into the portal. If Dabo wins the ACC and goes to the playoff and Miami doesn't, I mean, that's Miami fans are just they're gonna throw their hands up at that point. I mean, because look, Miami just got Tyler Barron from Louisville. They just added another piece late. That's what would be an FSU, obviously, but they're going to take a big drop off at quarterback. But that would be a crazy one out of the ACC. Also, look, 4 SEC teams on this list.
That's what I was about to say.
I mean, you got the 1, 5, 7, and 8 seeds. I mean, by the way, if Georgia and Texas, people expect to make the playoff. Not that you are. They expect it. Ole Miss is somewhat expected to make the playoff this year. If Kalen DeBoer made the playoff this year, that would be pretty impressive because they lost a lot. It's a transition year. Now, yes, he has Jalen Milroe, second year starting, but they lost a lot of guys. Some people would consider it a transition year, and I know it's Alabama, and I know they're still one of the 5, 6, 7 most talented probably rosters in the country, but they have a difficult year one schedule for a head coach coming in. If he made the playoff this year, that would be impressive to me.
Hey, I wanted to add this about Michigan. Texas obviously plays 2 of these teams, right? Georgia and Michigan. Michigan actually added, and I don't know if everybody saw this or not, they added a starting safety to their roster earlier this week from Michigan State, guy that had 3 interceptions last year. The Michigan defense is going to be good next year. Not only it may actually be outside of Georgia. Georgia and Michigan may be the two best defenses
easily
face. Now, I want to say that because a lot of people are expecting Texas to beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, myself being one of them at this point. But when you have a great one side of the football, and if Michigan has a great one side of the football, that game going to be really, really tough in Ann Arbor in some ways.
Notre Dame's always a lightning rod, right? Their schedule, though, is incredibly favorable next year. I know some people are like, Notre Dame won't get there. But I'm just going to read you off their schedule, because if they beat A&M to start the season, then they have a great shot at getting to the playoff. Their schedule, and I'm getting all sorts of craziness, but bring it up. At A&M, look, so if you win that game, you're going to be ranked really high. Your road schedule's at Purdue. You have Louisville at home. You have Stanford. You're at Georgia Tech. Obviously, you play the academies. You have FSU at home. At USC. Who knows what the USC is going to look like by then? Then maybe they'll play decent defense. But if Notre Dame beats A&M to start the season, they have a schedule that will probably get them to the playoff. And I'll say this about Notre Dame. If people say you sound like a Notre Dame fan, no, but I think they're going to have the best offense they've had in a long time. So that's going to give them a chance, especially with the schedule they play.
Well, one last thing, two last things. Texas beat Oklahoma State 49-21.
Yes.
And I don't know if the score was indicative of how much of a blowout that was.
Wasn't.
That's number one. Number two, Boise State and Tulane at 11 and 12. Yeah. I mean, two of them in there? Two of them, guys? Really?
I'm kind of surprised no Arizona, no Utah. One of those two over.
Or it's another Big Ten team.
Yes, that too.
Why not three Big Ten teams? I guess Notre Dame, people might consider them, but they're
they have Oregon now, so they have three Big
Ten. That's right.
Yeah. Forgive.
I don't think Michigan will be a playoff team this year. I mean, they're going to be really, really good on defense. I mean, really good. I think they may actually be better than Georgia defensively.
Does Michigan play Iowa this year? That could be 10-9.
Somebody's asking why no love for Penn State. I think Penn State is in James Franklin prove it to me mode around the country at this time.
He has had a problem getting over the top. Like he's played third fiddle. That's the bottom line for him.
Now Oregon enters the Big Ten, so he's technically now the fourth fiddle starting the season.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah,
because I think Penn State puts a ton of guys in the NFL. They just haven't been better than Michigan or Ohio State. So,
all right. So we have a couple of super chats that we need to knock out. One of them while we're talking about Tulane, Jay Lee says, talking Tulane, what's your prediction for Tulane at OU?
Yeah, I like Oklahoma in that. Tulane lost a really good quarterback, an NFL draft pick. I when I lived in Florida, I called some of his high school games there on local TV. Tough kid, really good athlete, good player. I had to besides Willie Fritz, and they had some obviously defections in the portal after Fritz left, but they lost a significant player at quarterback at a program like Tulane. So it's going to be hard to say on Tulane until you see their next quarterback and how good he actually is in a new system, new head coach. Obviously, a lot of change there at Tulane.
They're excited about a couple of what did they get? Ty Thompson from Oregon as a transfer.
He's very talented.
He's talented. I hear he can't hit the broadside of a barn. Like this very
problem
thrower. I look, it's easier for an Oklahoma to replace a Dylan Gabriel and still have more of a team than it is for Oklahoma, than it is for a Tulane to lose a Michael Pratt and its head coach and about a half dozen guys to the portal and still compete with an OU. I would take OU over.
And OU year 3 with Brent Venables in that defensive system, continuing to recruit players that fit his defensive system, which that was a huge transition for him from Lincoln Riley, players on defense, to Brent Venables, let alone physicality change defensively, but then getting your personnel. And you're now in year 3. I think defensively, Oklahoma will be too much for Tulane.
Same.
We got one other super chat. This one from Mike G. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate the super chat. He says, football, obviously number one, but I love the inclusion of other sports. Please continue to build that flow of information. Recruiting information can be difficult to find in other sports.
So I'll add in, we didn't have a chance to ask Coach White this, but he signed 2 players in November, one from Clearbrook High School in Friendswood down the road from where I'm at. She's a utility player, considered one of the top 20 prospects in the country. Then they signed a pitcher from Beaumont, California. How many people, raise your hand if you've been to Beaumont, California? But one of the top 3, 4, or 5 pitchers in the country. So we'll see what he adds out of the portal. But high school recruiting, they added 2 of the top 20 players in your various softball rankings.
And we definitely will continue to focus on other sports, because while we agree football is what drives this channel and a lot of Longhorn fandom, we also know that most people care about Texas sports and the Longhorns generally, right? I mean, we all want to see Texas do well. Mike White said this very well, I thought, when he was on, Jerry. He talked about, hey, it's clear that Chris Del Conte wants Texas to be good, not just in football, but in all sports. And I think that Texas wants to be a university of the first class.
Hey, I have an update, other sport update I want to do real quick before we get back to football and recruiting. And I should have mentioned this a couple days ago, but I was out at TJ Ford's facility. Those of you know TJ and I've been friends a long time. Monday, he was working out Rory Harmon. So Rory Harmon back on the court. She's still doing her physical therapy, but that was a first kind of session she had with TJ Ford. And it's great to see. Look, if you want to know how dedicated Rory Harmon is, where do I go to continue to ascend as a point guard? Yeah, maybe if I live in Cypress, I'll go out to Missouri City and start working with TJ Ford. That seems like a smart idea. So Rory Harmon ahead of schedule in a rehab.
And she's from Dallas.
Cypress.
Yeah. Is she from Cypress? Why do you think her and her brother were from Denton?
She's Cypress.
Oh, boy. Okay. Never mind. Bad intel there, Bobby.
Well, Jerry, we're going to let you give some good intel about the good states.
Yeah, look, I mean, I was, driving up and down the roads, and I was thinking about, I had my handyman out, and I was thinking about the Manscaped read. And look, man, Father's Day's coming up. Fellas, blink if you haven't purchased the Father's Day gift yet. I haven't yet either, to be fair. Yeah, we thought so. Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Maybe your pops had a bush since the late 70s, and that's okay. Our friends at Manscaped have crafted the total package for his special day, whether it's for the boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there. Manscaped has his bases covered. Head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS, all caps, from daddy to zaddy. Trust Manscaped. Look, if he carries a lot of body hair like most dads do, you're in luck with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. This bad boy's designed with fathers in mind, featuring the signature Lawnmower 5.0. This Father's Day is also the perfect time for your old man to stop stealing his wife's nail clippers and finally have a kit of his own. And by the way, we have to talk about this as well. The set of underwear he got for Christmas a decade ago definitely needs upgrading. And what better way with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0?
There you go, Jerry Hamilton. Bring it home, baby. Bring it home.
Hey, wait. Hold on. UT Boy said this is PG-13. Well, man, it is. So I left out one of my favorite parts of the read. Maybe I'll get to that one tomorrow. It may go to PG-17 tomorrow.
It'll be a Friday.
Don't take it to NC-17.
Yes.
How about that?
Okay, guys. Well, it is time for us to take y'all's questions out there. If you haven't already, please get your questions in, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. We're going to start here with Jeff, who was up early to get this question in from Jerry. He says, good morning from the Poconos. Jerry, what would you say at Poconos? I'm butchering it, Bobby. It's okay. Everybody's used to it by now. Jerry, what would you say is your accuracy on high?
The high accuracy is, it's up there. The problem is with when I put that out is the people, it's instant gratification. They want it now. I can't control when guys announce publicly. I can just let you know when it's gone down behind the scenes. And then it's up to them to take that out publicly. Some guys do it immediately. Some guys wait a few days or a couple of weeks, but it's pretty high. Now, I'll say this about silent commitments. Nobody hits 100% of their silent commitments, meaning the colleges. Texas had a couple last year that went elsewhere. So it does happen. Portal can be a backbreaker.
Yeah, I think that Jerry, I'll just speak for Jerry because I've been around for him since he's been doing this. He's 100% on them. That's what he is. He's 100% on the highs. Every time he does it, it's accurate when he does it. And I'm not trying to speak for you here, Jerry, because I don't think you even need me to. But the reality of it is some guys want to do it on their own time frame. They need to get edits done, or they want to wait until they get. Maybe it's for Father's Day. Maybe it's for their birthday. You never know when it's going to happen, but the river has been crossed. The die is cast, whatever you want to say. Yeah. So I feel like Jerry's actually, if you're asking for a percentage, it's 100. Now, whether it always comes true, because to Jerry's point, here's a couple things. What happens if they back off of it, or Texas takes another guy they don't like, or that's happened.
What happens if somebody comes with an NIL package twice what another school's? And that's where the game's changed a little bit. But
I don't know that that's happened to you yet, though. Has that happened?
It happened in basketball before.
Okay, got it. Fair.
Okay, our next question here, it comes from, let's do this one from Russ. Russ says, good morning from Vancouver, Canada. What position group will Texas get their next commitment from? And what position do you think will be the strongest next year?
What position do you think will be the strongest next year, Bobby, on the Texas team?
You're ignoring them.
I tried to get him for you guys. I tried, but it didn't work.
What position will be the strongest next year? I would say quarterback, defensive end are the two for me. Offensive line, man.
Offensive line's going to need to be.
Yeah, I think those are the ones for me that I like a lot. I think that by the end of the year, the actual receiver group might be in that category. I think tight end might even be in that category.
I also think by the end of the year, maybe middle of the year, tight end may actually be better than it was last year. As crazy as that is.
That's what I was just saying. If Nyblack actually understands and gets the offense and can, because think about JT Sanders, he can help other people get lined up. Just, and there are going to be 4 new guys out there other than Gunnar Helm that are all going to be looking around like, what do I do right now? That's the kind of thing I worry about.
Longhorns has a good one. Punt and kickoff return. Because, look, we had Xavier Worthy last year. Silas Bolden returned a punt for a touchdown last year at Oregon State. He's a blur.
But is he better than Xavier Worthy, Jerry?
I think he's the same. I think he has the same ability. But then you add Matthew Golden kickoff return. Yes, Keelan Robinson took one back. But Matthew Golden had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns last year. Silas Bolden's also put up big kickoff return numbers. I think Texas, they may have slightly upgraded their return game last year. Now, I'll tell you an undervalued area where Texas, some guys are going to have to come through for Texas. That's gunners. That's kick coverage. That's punt coverage. I would say punt coverage. Those areas, you're going to have some guys step up next season because Texas was extremely strong there.
Hey, Keelan Robinson and Keaton Crawford were freaks at it.
Yeah.
They were not good. They were great.
This actually leads me to my next question. Healy Freely 93 says, what players are likely to be the ones on the edges going after punts and field goals? Do you think it'll be Golden, Butler, Bolden, Wisner? Who do y'all see in that role?
I think as far as the punt block team, you look for your Jelani McDonald, your long arm guy that's an athletic safety. Look for somebody like that to emerge in the punt block game. And I think those guys are dangerous in the punt block game, or guys with extreme quickness.
Yes, I was going to say, not even quickness, Jerry, acceleration.
Yeah.
Like Keelan Robinson was great on punt block, not because he's quick. He's not twitchy quick sideways, but his acceleration, like 0 to 5 yards, is freaky, right? I think that Trey Wisner, for that reason, fits. He's not necessarily the long-armed athlete or long-bodied athlete like Jelani McDonald, but he is the kind of accelerating guy that can go from 1 to 100 pretty fast. So I would look for him heavily. And I don't know yet about Bolden. I kind of don't think that because he is undersized. I mean, he's smaller than Keelan Robinson, just to give you a sense of his size.
Well, I tried to trip you up, Jerry, for all the fans out there earlier, but maybe you can throw them a bone here. Chris McDonald says, when do we get to start looking for some commits? No names. Just when do we get to enjoy looking?
Well, look, James Simon announces May 29th. Do I think all the guys that we talk about on here will wait until late June to make their decisions? No, I don't. I think there will be a little movement before the official visits really kick off those last 2 big weekends for Texas. So I think 2, 3, 4 guys could drop potentially before that June 14th official visit weekend.
We're waiting right now. We're on, let's just be honest. I mean, it could happen at 12 o'clock. It could happen at 8 o'clock. It could happen 4 days from now. That's the best. I mean, we literally, again, it's up to some other folks.
We had a question earlier that where Texas recruiting class would end up. Look, I think Texas will. Way things are tracking right now, I think it'll be 4th straight top 5 level class. Does that mean you're ranked 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I can't say that right now. Things have to play out. But Texas is going to have a 4th straight top 5 level class, and that's really good air to be in. No doubt. I mean, you're at that point 4 straight. If you string 4 straight top 5, somebody on this chat can go back and do the history that like the last 15 years. I don't have time to do it maybe until the weekend, but you're talking about Alabama. Nick Saban had 1 class outside the top 5 in 14 years, I think. Georgia, since Kirby's been at Georgia, and Ohio State, Urban Meyer through Ryan Day. I mean, that's pretty much what you're talking about. Okay, our next question here is going to, it's more of a comment, but we had some people actually comment on this yesterday. I just never got around to it. Living rent-free in UT says, I read some reports stating that Santana Wilson has added 10 pounds of muscle since his football season ended, working with his dad's old trainer. Yesterday, we had some people wanting y'all to comment on not only that, but what you expect, if anything, from him this first year. I think he's fascinating because, look, so I've said he's similar to Malik Muhammad. I'm not saying he's going to be that level player as a freshman because he didn't come in for spring practice. But he's a guy that's been a corner. He's worked at corner. He's trained at corner, so he has a corner mind, right? I can tell you this. He goes through, he gets on Zooms once every week with members of the Texas defensive backs coaching staff and goes through the playbook. And he's always prepared from what I hear. He's always got the right questions. He's hard on himself. If he comes in with that same mindset, that kind of professional mindset that Manny Muhammad had, then he's going to be a really good player. I think they're also similar athletically. What Manny Muhammad did early on was he answered the bell physically as a high school senior in spring practice. Yep. And immediately caused a fumble, caused a couple of turnovers. If we hear the same things about Santana Wilson, he's coming from Arizona, not the level football that Manny Muhammad played in Dallas, okay, in that DFW area in Texas. But if he answers the bell with the physicality, technically he's going to be a very good player. Well, the question is there space for him immediately too, right? I mean, and I think the answer there is maybe. Because you look at the starting lineup right now, Manny Muhammad
is there. Javion Cole comes in from San Jose State. He's probably one that we should be talking about as a newcomer, actually, right? And then Gavin Holmes is a holdover from last year. So that's 3. Then you have Warren Roberson as 4. Beyond that, it's freshman Wardell Mack and Kobe Black. So where does Santana Wilson sit in that grouping of those 3, of Mack and Black, and then also Wilson? If Santana Wilson goes ahead of those 2, then he might end up ahead of Warren Roberson, and then all of a sudden he's in the 2 deep. That's what it looks like to me, and that's where he will get time. He will get action if he can outdo Wardell Mack and Kobe Black, and then he's up against Warren Roberson. We'll see. We'll see where it turns out.
Well, while we're talking about players from out west, Travis Acton wants to know, how well did Savea and Norton play together on the field at Arizona?
Well, the Arizona defense was extremely successful last year. And you saw that not only in the bowl game against Oklahoma, where they kind of made Oklahoma discombobulated, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, Oklahoma obviously was playing a new young quarterback in that game with Dylan Gabriel moving on already. But my point being, they were actually fairly successful. Both guys had, 350 to 400 snaps apiece.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if I would have called them. And there were also, there's another 2 guys in that Arizona defense that also saw a similar level of snaps on the interior. My point on this is Texas has got to get good play out of Norton and Savea. Particularly, I think Norton at this point, because I've seen Savea. Norton is a guy that actually will be over the ball more. Can he be better, for example, Jerry, than Vernon Broughton? Do you think Bill Norton? That's a real question.
Yes, I do.
Can Bill Norton be better than Vernon Broughton?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that would be big for Texas, because
I think Savea as well.
What's that?
I think both of those guys are.
Interesting.
This next question here is going to be from Shake and Bake. We're going to go back to recruiting here for a second. He says, how much of an NIL battle is Dakorien Moore going to be? It seems like Oregon is ready to fight. Also, how hard is Texas pushing with French, Lockett, and Johnson are there?
Yeah, so, I mean, look, it's a part of it. It should be. He's a top 10 player in the country. He'll do, and he's going to do great in NIL, even after whatever college he ends up at, because he's, again, I'll reset the show. I was at Duncanville yesterday to the lengthy interview with Dakorien Moore. That'll be up here on the YouTube channel here in a few hours. But such an impressive kid. Mama's raised him well. There's him and his mom yesterday. Dakorien and his mom yesterday at Duncanville. But he's going to do very well, because he does very well in front of the camera in this setting. Intelligent, thoughtful kid. But then that competitiveness, that confidence comes out as well, which you love. So you guys will like the interview. I'll say that. But look, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. I mean, this is the way it should be if you're Texas. This is the way the battles should be. You want to be going against these people for the top players in the country. So I don't know if that NIL will be a decision maker, because I think he's a top 10 level prospect. I think it's going to come down to, where does he want to be? Because he's going to have great options at all those places. So where does he want to be? And you'll hear in the video, he doesn't leave it to any questions unanswered about where his family wants him to be. So I think I have it at 65% for Texas, and I'll maintain that.
Here's my take on the NIL question. It's not going to come down to NIL like that. This guy, what you guys got to understand is teams are in the same neighborhoods now, unless somebody's just asking for a ridiculous sum. And one of the things that's not happening here. So he could go any of 10 places right now and get relatively the same. So it won't be about that for him. It will be about fit. And frankly, I think Texas has done a great job of explaining to him what they want him to do, who they want him to be. And I will add this. I would say there are only 5 to 10 guys around the country in recruiting that can truly write their ticket, Dakorien Moore can write his ticket. And I mean that in a big, big way. There's not a team in the country that wouldn't take Dakorien Moore today. So that's the kind of you're not dealing with a blue chip guy. You're dealing with a blue chip of blue chips. So big time player for the Longhorns potentially, in my opinion.
Okay, this next question along those same lines here, and it's from Zane Petty. He says, what percentage would you put on Texas getting French, Moore, and Lockett, or French, Moore, and Johnson?
I know that in our industry, the hype game is fun with all this stuff and some of the things being put out there. But the one thing, like Bobby just talked about, here's the one thing you just never know about, though, is so Tennessee in the last cycle went huge on one receiver that they thought was the best guy, right? So if Texas gets a couple of those guys, another school may see an opportunity to go huge when knowing Texas already has two guys in the boat, and we're going to do something here that we know Texas isn't or can't do because of circumstance. So that's the crazy things that can happen through NIL and recruiting nowadays. But I would say this. I think the four guys you mentioned, I'll be surprised if Texas doesn't get three of those guys in the class. Who will those three be? We'll see. I'll be surprised if three of those guys aren't in the class as it currently stands. So whoever those three are, unbelievable wide receiver recruiting class.
We're going to jump over to the other side of the football. Corey J. Well, I'm going to combine these two questions for you, Jerry. We'll start with this one from Living Rent Free in UT. He says Texas needs at least one elite corner in this cycle. You think they keep chipping away at Dijon Lee if he commits elsewhere after official visits? And then Corey J says, what corners do you see end up in this recruiting class?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, we know Sark's going to recruit through the whistle, right? You know that. And the whistle is ink, dry, December in recruiting. They've proven that in offensive line in 22 class. They've proven it in every class. Xavier Filsaime last year, flipping him from Florida. So Texas is nothing's going to change as far as the approach. To the corners I really look at in this class, Dorian Brew out of Conroe. Now, big kid. How big's he going to get? 6'2", about 200 pounds, ran 10.75 this spring. Thicker kid. His dad, an Olympian, built like a 400-meter guy. Dorian Brew's a thicker build than that. So he's obviously near the top of the board, at the top of the board. But here's where you throw out the rankings. I think Aiden Anning's a big-time prospect at corner, Bobby. I know you've watched him as well. So throw out the rankings a little bit on that. I think Aiden Anning's a really good player and a really good prospect at corner. Then you have Caleb Chester. Somebody brought up Caleb Chester. If you didn't see that interview that I had on here on the YouTube channel, go watch that, and you're going to move him up your board because he's a football junkie. He sat there and broke it all down. You can tell he studies film. It's everything with his personality and the way he attacks footballs on that video. Very impressive. So there's a couple of guys in the rankings that I think are going to outperform their rankings. But I know everybody's into the rankings. Dijon Lee is different. He's a 6'3.5" corner. Bobby, how fast is Dijon Lee? He plays a lot of off coverage. But then Texas is still trying to get Adonis Curry from Quartz Hill in Lancaster, California on campus. I think it's a long shot. But I do think there's some questions to be answered on how those guys are going to work themselves out as far as who Texas gets at that position.
Look, they need guys that can run. If you wanted to tell me, if you asked me what Texas needs at corner a little bit, they need more guys that can run, Jerry.
No, especially in this conference.
Yes, exactly. And I would say that's why I think a Javion Cole is a good fit for Texas, because I think he can really run. I think that Manny Muhammad is not a 4.3 guy, guys. He's a 4.45 probably. Yeah. My point being, I think Texas needs some more speed at corner right now. And I would be looking for that, as well as technique guys too. But hey, I want to say thank you once again to our sponsor, the Friday morning coffee and football. That's Austin Underground since 2004. Rick Vavro and his team at Austin Underground have specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Thanks to Rick Vavro and his team for their sponsorship of Thursday morning's Coffee and Football.
Hey, Blake, I'm going to zip through some questions real quick that I've on recruiting. It's going to be like speed dating. We're going to get through this real quick. All right. Jose Rodriguez, does Texas have a legit shot with Marco Jones? Kind of a wild card recruitment, also a baseball player, was a linebacker growing into edge. Obviously, he hadn't been on campus in a while. That official visit will be huge to see where it's at. I do think Hayden Lowe, obviously Lance Jackson committed, who's one of the best in the country, pound for pound, one of the top probably 10 athletes in the country. Then you have Lowe from Westlake Village and the California Oaks Christian. Then you have Smith Orogbo. So there's some edge guys that are going to be in competition there for that spot. So we'll see on that. I know it's here's Champ Bailey. It's hard to define Michael Terry at one single position, but what about Terry as a safety? I just think he's going to get too big. I think he's 6'2" and change, 218 as a junior in high school that plays multiple sports. I have a hard time seeing how a kid like that doesn't weigh 230 based on my years in the business, but we'll see. Alan Raker here, which month produces more commitments, June or July? Obviously, I'm going to go with July because the high percentage of those kids are going to go through their official visits before they make a decision. The majority of guys you talk to, there's some that'll back off the timeline. You've already seen that. And I think there'll be 3 or 4 others that do. But the majority of these guys are going to wait until after July 4th or around July 4th to announce those decisions, go through the entire official visit process. Space City Wrangler, Lance Jackson, and Nick Townsend are 5 stars. I definitely think I've said this on Lance Jackson, and I'll say it again. It's not his fault for being in Texarkana. It's not Coach Gibson's fault. We've had him on the show. He does an amazing job at Pleasant Grove. I say that to say this. If Lance Jackson was at Duncanville or North Shore or Houston or Dallas school, he'd already be ranked a 5-star prospect. That's just recruiting. I mean, people would go to those schools and see him more. There's not a lot of people driving to Texarkana in this industry that do it nationally to go see Lance Jackson in person. That's the sad reality. And that's why I love making these trips. We see those guys in person. We can bring it to you here.
Okay, guys, we got time for a couple more questions here. As Jerry, as he said, just speed dated a lot of those questions, knocked a bunch out for y'all. This next one here is a super chat from James McDaniel. Thank you, James. We appreciate it. And he says, Bobby, who are your top defensive backs this cycle?
My top, Cade Phillips would start for me. I think he's kind of what you want all around right now. I think he can play a number of positions for you. I think he could even he's got the height, the length, and the speed. What he long jump 24/7, Jerry? Is that right?
Back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he would be a guy. I like Devin Sanchez, Dorian Brew. Sanchez, of course, committed to Ohio State. Brew out there. You mentioned Caleb Chester. I like him a lot. Aiden Anding is someone that I find, if there is a single guy in this class, Jerry, and I know you like him as a corner, that I think fits as nickel, it's Aiden Anding. He's the guy for me that fits as a nickel. So those are some of the guys for me. If I had to pick one that I think beyond Sanchez that is a blue chip kind of guy, I would probably go Phillips at this point.
I agree.
All right, this next one, kind of a fun question here. Reggie Matthews says, Jerry, Bobby, and Blake.
Oh, wow.
Top 2 to 5 most anticipated games this season that do not involve Texas. Maybe something like Ohio State at Oregon, Georgia at Ole Miss, Michigan at USC, et cetera, et cetera. Anything come off top of y'all's head?
Well, look, I think Georgia, they have a hard schedule this year. They play at Alabama and at Ole Miss and at Texas. I think Georgia at Alabama and Kalen DeBoer's first year is a big game because it's big for – obviously, it's big for everybody, right? But if Kalen DeBoer beats Georgia in year one, that's – Alabama fans are going to be – they're going to be pretty excited about that one. Now, I'll tell you another one. Notre Dame at A&M in Mike Elko's first game. That's look. Notre Dame's got a schedule to make the college football playoff, and I actually think offensively, watch the receiver from FIU that transferred in there to go with Great House, Riley Leonard at quarterback. They got more skill talent than they've had on offense in a while. But on the flip side, if Mike Elko beats Notre Dame out of the gate, that's a statement opportunity for a first-time head coach or first-year head coach at Texas A&M. That's a opportunity to make a statement. So that's a big game and one that I'll be following. I'll say this one. Here's a great one from Isaiah Stewart. UF at Miami.
That's what I was going to say.
If Billy Napier loses that game, I mean, it's just not going to happen. Look at the rest of the schedule. If he wins that game, you have A&M coming to town 2 weeks later, and you have a little early season momentum before that schedule gets brutal. And if you're Miami, you're expected to win that game this year. Mario Cristobal has expectations at Miami. That's going to be an interesting one. Somebody said Clemson, Georgia, week 1. That's a big one for Clemson. A lot bigger for Clemson even than Georgia in my estimation. But that's a home game in Atlanta for Georgia. This is where I think it's such a big season for Dabo, guys, because he has drawn his line in the sand. And he said, I don't need portal guys. We don't need them.
They're not good enough to play at Clemson.
Right. Jared Verse. So if he loses by a couple touchdowns to Georgia, this is the year that his fan base is actually say, hold on now. What do you pay you? $12 million a year? Why aren't you adapting to college football like everybody else? Isn't that what made Nick Saban stay on top? Because he was so adaptive? And so this is the first year that his fan base is going to question him if he doesn't perform up to the expectations on the field. It's a big year for Dabo because he's drawing a line in the sand.
He's also got a third-year starting quarterback in Cade Klubnik, the Austin Westlake product. Hey, look, this is the game that nobody is talking about that I think needs to be talked about. Say Georgia beats Texas, goes undefeated through most of the year. Their 10th game of the year is against Ole Miss in Oxford. Ole Miss, you just look at they'll be favored in every game heading into that Georgia game. I mean, Ole Miss is scheduled. Furman, okay, they're going to beat Furman. Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. They're 4-0.
Yeah.
They host Kentucky. They should outscore Kentucky.
Yes.
They go to South Carolina. South Carolina, who knows what they're going to do? I mean, they haven't won 5 games yet, 7 games or 6 games under Shane Beamer. They go to LSU. They host Oklahoma. They'll be favored in those. Okay.
Yes.
They go to Arkansas. They'll be favored in that. Their 10th game of the year is Georgia. Ole Miss, Georgia. In Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, November 9th we just saw that list of guys that Yardbarker put up the top 12 or whatever. That's 2 top 10 teams or top 8 teams playing in the 10th game of the season. And I think both of them have an opportunity to be undefeated.
Look, there's a reason Ole Miss went absolutely all in on the portal. They've
got a quarterback.
And they got a third-year starting quarterback who will be a draft pick, who's a good athlete, good player. They knew they had the schedule if they went all in on the portal on the offensive and defensive lines. Somebody brought up Ohio State at Oregon.
That's one of my top 3 for sure.
Ryan Day better not lose in year 1 to Dan Lanning in the Big Ten. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. He won't.
We'll see.
He won't. It's not happening.
We'll see.
I think USC and LSU will be another intriguing matchup as well. One that I don't think we've mentioned. But lots of good matchups this year. On paper, anyway.
Yeah. Hey, look, Ole Miss, Georgia is not sexy. I mean, I get that. I'm just telling you, I think both teams could be 9-0.
Yep.
And we're not thinking about that game right now. We're really not talking about it.
Yeah.
But give me to the month of November, and then let's reconvene and see if we are. Not that Ole Miss will ever be interesting some way. And I just think that they've got a chance this year.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. We want to thank them along with Manscaped for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. A special thanks to Coach Mike White. Good luck to his team this upcoming weekend as they host the Aggies in the Super Regional. Gotta love when he's on. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we post a video, go live, whatever it may be. And if you haven't already, be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Join in on all the discussions with us. Great stuff going on over there. Jerry, Bobby, CJ, everybody posting news. Seems like at all hours of the day. So you won't miss a thing. But for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.